So traffic is an issue in our city, but housing, of course, is an issue right across the country. And a new housing development plan has been on the agenda at the Trudeau government's Liberal cabinet retreat.
So the government's unveiled a new plan that would see about 56 properties added to a new public lands bank. These are locations considered suitable for long-term leases so developers can build affordable housing. These include things like former military bases, Canada Post sites, and federal office buildings that are among the properties in the new bank. Now, most will be offered for a long-term lease, not a one-time sale. The idea here is to ensure that the lands remain in public hands and that housing is built on them remains affordable.
So for more on the feasibility of this plan, we're joined live in the studio this morning by Jennifer Keesmaat, President and CEO of Collective Marquee Developments and, of course, former Chief Planner for the City of Toronto. Jennifer, always a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning.
And especially to talk about this. So this is we saw the commercial from Federal Housing Minister Sean Fraser. How feasible do you think this plan is? I mean, they're saying construction could start in 2025. The goal is 3.9 million homes by 2031. So this is a small chunk. But is this a good beginning?
Well, absolutely. So building housing always starts with land, right? This is the big challenge. How can you find land? Is there land that is serviced? Is there land that is in a neighborhood with schools, with parks, with transit? That's the starting point. So what's really interesting about what the federal government has done here is they've actually tried to create an expedited process. Yes, it's been a long time coming. They've been talking about it for a long time. But the idea is that it's an expedited process where people who build land, folks like build housing, people like us, can actually go to this database, look at the federal lands that are available, identify what stage they're at in the development process. So the site in Toronto, for example, that they put on the table is near Downsview. It's right where there is a subway station already. 1,400 homes can be built in that area in a complete community, kind of a mid-rise and a taller community. So developers can go. I went yesterday. I looked at the site. I checked out the properties. And then developers can put in a proposal to build on those sites. So part of what they've done here is they've tried to flip around the procurement process, because the way it's worked is there's been a parcel, the government puts out an RFP. It's kind of a very slow process that I heard from someone yesterday has taken an average of 7 years. And so imagine that in a housing crisis, 7 years to get that land to market. So this tool's kind of cool because, and you can imagine now that the tool exists, they can keep adding and adding to that database. So will it have an impact? Well, that leads us to the second part. There has to be developers who are willing to build this housing, right? Like it's a partnership. So there are other incentives in today's market that are required, because the problem is, you've seen what's happened to the condo market. The problem is it costs this much money to build a house. In simple terms, it costs this much money to build a house, and you can sell that house or rent that house for this much in comparison. So interest rates, the cost of borrowing is through the roof. The cost of construction is through the roof. But then this is the price of a house. So there's other costs that have to come down. It's about the land, which is what this data bank is about. It's about the land, but it's not just about the land, right? Like there's the other things too. So is this a critical step? In my opinion, it's a fantastic step, and it's sort of a legacy this government will lead, because now that we have this database and we have this land bank, it's not something that should ever be taken away, right? Like it's going to last for generations as these lands get developed. But there's other kind of things that are needed too.
So are you hinting at that they need to really incent developers even more? Because, I mean, we know land can be 25 to 30% of, overall construction costs. Are you saying that's kind of not tantalizing enough from a developer perspective right now to want to build on these lands? I'm
going to tell you something totally crazy and a bit mind-boggling. It's been mind-boggling to me, which is there are scenarios where we look at properties, even if the land cost is zero, we can't build.
Come on.
Why?
Because the cost of construction is so high, the development charges at the City of Toronto are very, very high. The approvals process, you have to upfront on any project. You usually have to upfront anywhere from, depending on the scale of the project, but anywhere from, we tend to budget $500,000 to $2 or $3 million to get that project to approval. So just think about it. That's money you're putting on the table, which in a low interest rate environment, not too much of a problem, because you're not paying high interest on that money as you're getting your approvals. But today, you've got high interest rates. You're paying a lot of money just to get to the point of putting the shovel in the ground. Yeah. So that makes the calculus very tricky. Like, I can't understate the impact of high interest rates on being able, think about it from a homeowner's perspective, right? High interest rates can double your monthly mortgage bill. Yeah. So when you're building hundreds of condos and you have to borrow in order to build those condos, the math just doesn't work. So there's a couple other things the government can do. They can provide low interest loans for building housing. Yeah. There's some programs that exist that can be ramped up. The other thing is development charges at the City of Toronto. So, there's some developments that we have where a quarter of the cost of building that home is a government fee. Yeah. So that's something completely within the purview that the government can fix. The government, I would say, and I was a part of the government for a small period of time, the government got a little bit greedy. They were like, hey, we can keep adding fees. Yeah. We're going to get developers to build our community centers. We're going to get them to build our daycares. We're going to get them to build our parks.
There's a limit.
In a low interest rate environment, you can push in that way. But when the projects aren't penciling, that kind of pushing doesn't really make sense anymore. So there has to be a recalibration at the municipal level, and then the low interest lending from the feds, that would help too. So there's a series of things that need to be layered or stacked together in order to ensure that today those properties will get built as housing.
Like you said, the math has to add up and make sense. And
my partner says this all the time. He's like, it's just math, it's just math. If the math doesn't work, no shovel goes in the ground, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, really appreciate you coming in to break this all down for us. Jennifer Keesmaat, CEO of Collective Marquee Developments and former Chief City Planner. Thank you.
Always appreciate the insight. Thanks, Jennifer.
Nice to see you.